is the incidence of violent crime in the city of Chicago in 2016, 800 murders, 4,300 shootings. Department of Justice report following on the heels of a commission report that was convened by the mayor and produced at the direction of Lori Lightfoot, both suggesting systemic problems in the Chicago Police Department. And to address all of the above and more, we're pleased to be joined again by Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. Superintendent Johnson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let me just start with the Department of Justice report that was issued a couple weeks back before the change in administration at the federal level. One of the things I thought was glaring in its omission from that report was any real taking to task of the political civilian leadership of the city of Chicago for not just this mayor, but including previous mayors, because isn't the Chicago Police Department and its how it functions a function of the quality of the leadership emanating from the fifth floor and from the city council?
Well, I mean, the politics of it is that, they're responsible for funding the things that we need to do, but in terms of the overall direction of the department, CPD does that independently of City Hall.
But they make personnel decisions. Mayors appoint superintendents like you. So personnel is policy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in that regard, you're right. I think that it's been a failure from a lot of different avenues in terms of how we got to the point that we did, But what I can do is tell you this, since I've been appointed superintendent, this particular mayor has been very supportive financially and in just overall policy making of the direction that we want to go in now. And he really has been a great partner in terms of improving CPD.
All right. So what do we need to do? I mean, Dan and I both live in Chicago. We've called this place home. I mean, I've been here 20 plus years. I think he has been as well. But when is it going to stop? And what can you do to stop the carnage, the American carnage that Donald Trump seemed to bring up in his inauguration to make the city safe again? And we want, I live on the north side. I want my police officers back. When is that going to happen?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that one of the things that's upsetting to a lot of people in Chicago, including myself, is that the national narrative will depict Chicago as a city just totally out of control, and that's just simply not the case. Our violence is driven in predominantly 5 districts out of 22 in the city. And to be quite honest, it's actually 3, 2 on the west side and 1 on the south side that drive most of our violence. But the truth of the matter is this. The police are out there working hard every day, arresting bad guys with guns. But until we get our policymakers to help us hold these repeat gun offenders accountable for their actions, we're going to continue to see this gun violence.
That's a fair statement, but I mean, if police are out there doing their job, working diligently every day, and I concede that point, I think that's true about the overwhelming majority of police officers. How do you square that when you hear from the Department of Justice, when you hear from even that Lori Lightfoot-led commission locally, that the Chicago Police Department is systemically racist, a police department where nearly 50% of the officers are black or Latino? I don't believe that's true, but that's what the reports that have been issued about CPD have effectively said.
Yeah, well, do we have our challenges? Sure we do. Like you said, the majority of the officers out here are trying to do the job professionally, respectfully, and fairly. Do we have individuals that abuse their powers? Yeah, but that's, my challenge to deal with them accordingly. There's no place in CPD for racism or treating people unfairly. So that's part of the training, the new types of training that we're putting in place to try to root that kind of stuff out. There's just no place for it. But I will tell you this, it's going to take everybody, police, community members, clergy, business owners, elected officials. Everybody has a stake in this game. It's going to take everybody to reduce this gun violence.
Well, training, you mentioned training, and that was the watchword of the press conference when former Attorney General Loretta Lynch was in town training, and that's what the mayor focused on as well, the training, and we talked about videos that are 35 years old. I mean, if the video is, sometimes the classics never go out of style. If the video is relevant to training police today as it was 35 years ago. I don't know how the age of the videos that have any material impact, but perhaps you could describe it. What is the training regimen now, and what is it going to be, and how is that delta going to change how police the streets?
Right. Well, one thing I think we should keep in mind is that the report went from the time period of 2011 to roughly 2015, early 2016. And so we put a lot of things in place now that they didn't touch on it. But if you read the report, they did give us a lot of credit for moving forward. But in terms of the training, we're moving towards more scenario-based training because I just believe that, hands-on training is better than, PowerPoint training or depending on them to go to a computer and essentially look at the training in that regard. But as far as that video goes, I had a talk with the Deputy Chief of Training, and the video itself is still very relevant. The curriculum around the video was updated as late as 2013, but the video that they referred to is actually still relevant in the police world.
Now, over the weekend, you had a police raid where you netted 120 arrests and got about 19 guns off the streets. Are we going to be seeing more of these raids and getting the bad guys back to where they belong, behind bars?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a lot of success in the latter part of 2016 doing these particular types of missions. So moving forward, we will continue them. But we're doing a lot of things in terms of utilizing technology to combat this crime issue. So two of our most troubled districts, we're setting up miniature fusion centers where the district commanders in those particular districts will have 24/7 analysts in their districts to help them with their deployment. So we're doing a lot of things moving forward that I think will help. But at the end of the day, we still need our legislators to do the right thing and help us with this gun bill. Because I got to tell you, when you look at the fact that CPD recovers twice as many guns as New York and L.A. combined, that's ridiculous. But that just lets you know how many guns are out here on the street. We arrested over 8,500 guys last year with guns. That's ridiculous. And we still have the amount of violence that we have. That's because these guns, there's just a proliferation of guns on the streets of Chicago.
Well, we're talking to CPD Superintendent Eddie Johnson. And Superintendent Johnson, you've also made an issue on the prosecution side. Amy's mentioning the crime statistics from the weekend and the number of people that were arrested who are convicted felons, substantial. And so I wonder if you've had conversations with newly minted Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx and even U.S. Attorney Zach Farden about the prosecution side of dealing with violent repeat offenders.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I spoke to both of them yesterday, and we have been having ongoing conversations since the new state's attorney was put in place. And I'm really optimistic about the things that we're trying to put in place moving forward, because that is a big piece of it. Because let's face it, we can arrest these guys every day, but if they're back out on the street the next day, then what are we doing? But I think that the new state's attorney recognizes that we have a gun problem in Chicago, as well as the U.S. attorney, and both of them have been very, very, very receptive to the plans we want to put in place moving forward.
Now, since the Department of Justice report has been released, what has morale been like in the department?
Well, you know what? We knew the report was coming, so we have been bracing ourselves for quite a while. Listen, I've been a cop for 28 years, and it's difficult to read criticism of that nature about something that you love doing and the job that you've invested your whole adult life to. But at the same time, constructive criticism is not a bad thing. We have to embrace it and, do the things that we need to do to correct some things. So the morale, I think, the morale of the troops has been hurt, over the past year for all the things that have gone on, as well as the national rhetoric, the anti-police rhetoric going around. But I think that they still want to come out here and be professional and be the police. That's why they swore the oath, and that's what I expect them to do.
You mentioned the report covers 2011 to 2015, roughly speaking. You find it odd that Department of Justice didn't interview Gary McCarthy, who was the CPD superintendent during that time period?
Well, I would have thought they would have interviewed him. I mean, I don't think that it would have hurt to talk to him. So, I don't know the details of why they did or did not, but I think it would have been a good thing to talk to him.
And with respect to morale and just the police work, a substantial, precipitous decline in the number of police stops last year as compared to 2015. Are we going to see that change in 2017 and going forward?
Yeah, well, you know what? The number of stops did dip quite a bit. That is correct. But I would tell you this: when I look at the fact that our overall gun arrests were 9% over what they were in 2015, that lets me know that the police are still out there doing their jobs. The important piece to that, I think, is to recognize we want to stop the right people for the right reasons at the right time. And arresting bad guys with guns is the most dangerous thing that they can do. And they did that over and beyond what they did in 2015. So I think if we stay on that path, we'll be fine.
I wanted to ask you about a video that's going viral right now. It's a police officer throwing a cup of coffee at a motorcyclist. The officer had mentioned that he had popped a wheelie right before and that he was traveling in a pack about 25 motorcycles. Do you know who that officer is and what kind of punishment are they going to face?
Well, the officer, to their credit, the officer identified himself, so we know who it is. The investigation is ongoing, so, there's no way for me to try to make that type of behavior right. Despite anything that those motorcyclists did, that wasn't the way to handle it. So, at the end of the day, he'll be held accountable and he'll be punished accordingly.
He is Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. Superintendent Johnson, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
And he joined us on our Turnkey.Pro answer line.